Hi, I'm Caleb van Reineveld, returning officer of the Student Union, and I shall be hosting Hustings for the position of President of the Oxford Student Union. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to deliver a speech. Then I shall pose 2 general questions submitted by student members of the Student Union to all candidates, which they will have 1 minute to answer. I will then ask each candidate 2 specific questions which are related to their manifesto, which they likewise shall have a minute to answer. If candidates speak in excess of the allocated time period, they shall have 15 seconds to wrap up their point, and if they continue to speak after that point, they will be muted for time purposes. So the role of president of the Student Union is the most senior of the thematical roles and one of the most sought after. It serves a significant function in upholding the democratic principles and obligations of the Oxford Student Union. It helps to ensure that these principles are implemented across the activities of the organisation. It also provides leadership for the Student Union in policy making, campaigning and representation. The student president will serve as the public face of the union and a spokesperson for the SU and all of its activities. They also play a key role in the relationship between student council, representing general student membership, and the trustee board, helping to coordinate the activities of the union. They also serve on a number of key university committees. So voting for this role, along with others in student union elections, will open on Tuesday, the 9th at 8 AM and closes on Thursday at 6 PM. So in order to vote, please do go to the Oxford Student Union website under elections. So I shall start with giving each candidate an opportunity to deliver a speech. So Martin, would you like to give a speech?
Sure, thanks, Caleb. So hi everyone, I am Marcin. I am a finalist lawyer from St. Anne's College, and I use pronouns he, him. I've been involved with Oxford SU for almost 2 years now. I started getting involved in my first year, and since then I've served as a student council officer, as a student trustee, or as the chair of the International Students Campaign, as well as sat on one university committee with the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Education. So I think that I would be capable of working for all Oxford students from my day one in office. And in terms of my main priorities, I have quite a few of those. So for example, one of them would be mental health. And after struggling with it myself during the pandemic and seeing many of my friends doing the same, I would want the SU to focus more on issues related to student welfare, mental health, as well as COVID-19 mitigation, so that we would have a new policy ready before the start of Michaelmas, so we wouldn't have to have the worries that students experience this year. The other issues that I really do care about are supporting student societies, as well as providing more guidance to groups that have been underrepresented before at the SU level, which includes international and graduate students. And in terms of my plan for the SU as a whole as an organization, I wanted to ensure that the SU would be more transparent, accountable, and it would have more contact with student members beyond just asking students to vote for their leadership once a year. So I believe that I have the experience to deliver, and that I would be a good candidate that has already experienced many of the issues other students are facing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. So we'll now move on to Rashmi to deliver her speech. Go for it.
I'm Rashmi, and I use she, her pronoun. As a first-generation college student from a developing nation, I'm honored to be here. But I've also struggled to feel like I belong. I know what it's like to have mental health issues. I know what it's like to struggle financially. As a person from the formerly colonized nation of India, it makes me sad, uncomfortable, and angry to see statues on campus celebrating colonizers and slave owners. I'm running for president of the Oxford Student Union because I want to make sure that every student, no matter their background, feels like they belong. To me, belonging means creating a culture that celebrates diversity and promotes inclusion. That's why, as president, I will advocate for tearing down the statues of Christopher Codrington and others who provide students like me with painful reminders of the suffering of our ancestors. Belonging also means recognizing and accommodating student needs. As a divisional representative for my academic division, I led the successful effort to suspend residency requirements for the Hillary term. If elected president of the Student Union, I will fight to keep this suspension in place until the World Health Organization declares the end of the pandemic. Belonging means ensuring students have access to quality mental health resources. It means advocating for complete divestment of college endowments from fossil fuels, so that we as a university do our part to create a place of belonging for those that come after us. As your president, I will lead with courage and compassion. I will work tirelessly to make Oxford a place where we treat each other as equals and look out for one another. If you share my vision, please join me. I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you very much. So in line with his campaign as the empty chair candidate, Richard will not be here to speak to us at the Hustings today. As such, I shall move on to Steph, who should be laying out his speech.
Thanks very much, Caleb. Hi, everyone. I'm Steph. I'm also running for the leadership, and I use he, him, his pronouns. So I think we all agree that the SU has a terrible image. Most people don't know what it does or why it's even there. We have to change this. I think the best way to do it is start foregrounding the best work that's done by the SU, which is done by the student campaigns trying to change things. I want to reflect this on the website by making it very clear what the SU is doing and who's doing it and where we're at, most importantly. For this reason, I think we should make concise annual and termly reports on the progress that will be really clear of what's happening and what the pushback is on the particular issues, so it's very easy for people to get involved. To that end, also, I think we should be empowering not only the individuals to know what's going on, the organizations and the groups of students who are trying to change things to have a better chance of doing that. So creating group conferences with the SU campaigns and also individual student campaigns with the uni administration, which are open and transparent. So there's no excuse for being stonewalled and having endless reports on things that have happened without really knowing why we haven't got anywhere. I think the dire need for better communications, both to students and with groups, is something that I'm really well placed to be able to ameliorate. We need to be, first of all, sorry about this, it's been a busy day. In my position as a communications expert on Greenpeace in Athens, my main job, and I learned from many people, was to communicate the issues of political issues to people who are concerned with it.
15 seconds.
As Radical Forum co-chair, I helped put together the disorientational guide, which is coming out, which is basically an activist scene which put together work from all of the different groups trying to change things together. I think I can communicate.
Thank you very much. That's your time. I do apologise. We're very constrained with the hustings, and as such, you shall have to move on. So, as such, we shall next move on to the general questions that will be posed to all candidates. So the first question that I shall pose is as follows. Given you will serve as a key representative and figurehead for the Oxford SU, how experienced are you with the student union itself and the work that it does? Go for it, Martin.
Okay, I guess I'm going to be first for everything now. So I think I'm the most experienced candidate in terms of knowing how DSU operates and functions from the inside. I have been a student council member for 2 years. I have served as a co-chair of an SU campaign. I've been a steering committee member and I've been a student trustee. So I think I'm the only candidate who's actually served on the top 2 decision-making bodies of DSU, the trustee council, the trustee board, and the student council. So I think that would be well placed to understand and utilize those structures from the very beginning of my days in office. So I think I would be perfectly capable to do what would be expected to be in that role. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. So I'll now move on to Rashmi. So Rashmi, given you will serve as a key representative and figurehead for the Oxford Student Union, how experienced are you with the SU and its work?
I think I'm very familiar with the idea of a student union because I was a sabbatical officer before, back in my undergrad days back in India. Though the perspective is different, I tried to actively involved in the student union here as well. I am the current divisional representative for MPLS for all the taught courses, and I sit on smaller boards like the Education Committee and the divisional board for MPLS. And apart from that, I'm also a part of the Lineker College Common Room, and I co-founded the Oxford Aviation Society last month. So I think I do understand what it means to work at the grassroots level in organizations here at Oxford. So that is it, me trying to bring my two perspectives together.
Well, thank you very much. So we'll now go on to Steph. You have an opportunity to answer the question.
Great, thanks. I don't have too much experience with the bureaucracy of the SU from the inside, but what I do have is a lot of understanding of where radical groups really need the SU's help. I was also a male welfare officer at my college, sat on many of the committees, and know just how crucial SU support can be in pushing through important issues. Equally, when I've been working with, in my capacity as co-chair of the Radical Forum, I work with many different radical organizations, both inside and outside the SU, who need institutional support of various kinds and are often let down by the SU in their replies, I'm sorry to say, but also in their understanding of the scope of their role to be able to help them. This has been particularly clear in my talks with the heads of the UCU. So I think I have a good idea of how to be organizing and where people think that the SU has been falling short on that.
Thank you very much. So as such, I will move on to the second general question. It's posed as follows. General eating disorders affect a huge number of students at Oxford. By some 2016 estimates, as many as 1,200 students are affected by these eating disorders. Due to the lockdown, it's likely this has now got a lot worse. What will you personally do to campaign for better treatments for students with these disorders? So I will start by referring this question to Martin.
Thanks. I guess that goes back to what I said before about my priority, that is mental health and student welfare. I do actually have quite a few Oxford friends who have struggled with eating disorders before, and I think it's important for us to recognize that those are difficult problems that the university and the SU need to do something about. One of my manifesto pledges is closer cooperation with the counseling service. And I know that's not going to solve the problem entirely, but I do believe that the SU needs to work on promoting the issue, on promoting solutions to that issue, and on supporting students getting help, whether from the NHS, from the counseling service, or from their college and the universities. I think that would be something that the SU is definitely well placed to organize and to support students who are troubled by that problem.
Thank you very much. I now pose the question to Rashmi. Feel free to ask me if you want me to repeat it.
Well, I did get the question, thank you, but I don't think I know enough about this problem to make any comment. But where I come from, malnourishment is a problem, but I don't know if that would compare anything with eating disorders. But I would definitely, I think I do agree with Marcin and Pierce in whatever they said, but I believe that I don't know enough about this issue to make any comment, but I would definitely find out more and work on it if elected as the president.
Well, thank you for your honesty. I shall now refer the question on to Steph. Go for it.
Thanks. Yeah, I think eating disorders are an incredibly personal issue. I think it's really difficult for people to be able to understand it in themselves and also to be able to communicate it to even the closest people to them. In times of COVID, where the majority of the students might not even be in college or around other students, the only thing a body like the SU can do is provide a good amount of information, both to people to kind of recognize some signs on eating disorders, understand how best to talk to their friends, but also provide information on how to get help. for those who might be suffering from it and are looking for any kind of help they can get.
Well, thank you very much. That concludes the general questions posed to all candidates. She'll now have specific questions that are targeted at the manifesto pledges raised by the candidates themselves. So I shall start with posing 2 questions to Martin. So Martin, you pledged to prioritise addressing the issue of disparity in fees between domestic and international students. How do you think the university would make up for the loss of income resulting from lowering international students' fees?
So before I start talking about the loss of income, I'm just going to say that I've already worked on a inter-university campaign that's focused on lowering the international fees for international students. I've worked with other Russell Group international officers, and I think that's something that's really one of my top priorities. And in terms of the loss of income, I don't believe that international students should be cash cows for the university. And I think that there are many viable options for the university to take, whether that be adopting the policies used by US universities, which are just focused on getting more private donations, or just making sure that there are more scholarships for international students so that the ones who can actually afford those fees can pay those fees, or even fees that are slightly higher, and the students who really need help can get more scholarships from the increase in fees for some of the other people. So I think those are 2 other solutions, either getting more private donations or just making sure that those students who need the money get them.
Thank you very much. I shall now pose the second question specific to your manifesto. So Martin, you promised to push for bringing the registration of societies under the control of the Oxford Student Union. What would that mean for societies which advocate positions which are at odds with current Oxford Student Union policy, such as Students for Life Oxford?
That's a good question. I think the problem is that most student unions across the country do actually regulate societies, and at most other universities is the student union, not the university or the proctors that are registering societies. I think it definitely can be done. I don't think there will be any major impact for societies that are just at odds with the current policy. It's not about ESU controlling the societies. It's about ESU fulfilling the roles that's currently done by the proctors. So they're making sure the societies are registered, helping them with their elections, organizing and promoting their events. So it's more about the administration of the whole thing, as opposed to actually controlling what those societies do. And I don't think there will be any problems, even if SU officers or the SU as a whole disagree with what specific societies are doing. It's just about not breaking the rules and making sure the societies are supported, and not about policing them.
Okay, thank you very much. So I shall now move on to the manifesto-specific questions for Rashmi. So Rashmi, the Rhodes Scholarship brings around 100 students a year from across the world to Oxford, many of them who may not otherwise be able to come to the university. Given your commitment to decolonise Oxford, do you think the university should continue to work with organisations like the Rhodes Trust, which had origins in imperialism but now serve a charitable purpose?
Well, I think that I don't think I made that specific comment in my manifesto, but either ways, let me answer that. I do feel that even if your intentions have changed, the name still carries the prestige for a person who stood for something that is so negative within our society. And we shouldn't associate ourselves with something like that, even if it's providing money to the university or for students to come here and study. I mean, we can have another scholarship which celebrates someone else and has a more has had a more positive impact over the world than Cecil Rhodes. I really think that we can change, and I'm sure that there are lots of people who have done good in their life who are willing to set up a scholarship trust, and that we don't have to continuously propagate Rhodes Scholarship for giving out scholarships. I think we can have other scholarships.
Thank you very much. So the second question I posed to you, specific to your manifesto, is that you call on the university to inculcate diversity in the recruitment of counsellors for students. Mm-hmm. What does inculcating diversity mean to you?
It means having people of all kinds of diverse backgrounds as counsellors, having maybe BAME people as counselors, having maybe people, trans women, people of different sexual orientation, different backgrounds as the counselors, because having Asians on board, because I feel like since we are such an international community, we bring in problems which necessarily some counselors with a particular kind of background cannot understand in its entirety. So by diversity, I mean having people of all kinds of backgrounds available there, having gay people, having trans women, having Asian people on board as counselors, so that they can really understand and relate to where the student is coming from.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all the specific questions I have from your manifesto, Rashmi.
Thank you.
I will now move on to Steph. So, Steph, you promised to make termly reports on the work of the Oxford Student Union to improve students' understanding of its workings. Given that sabbatical officers already provide termly reports to Student Council, how does your proposal differ from this?
I think a lot of the SU emails can be seen and ignored. I think it can kind of be seen as spam, and I doubt by slightly, I'm not arguing that by slightly changing the content, we can suddenly make students think they're not spam. By providing information through all the SU channels that we have on the specific issues and the foregrounding of the student project campaigns, along with outside organizations trying to make change, and by showing where we are with specific issues and what exactly is holding back, I think there's a lot of scope for clarity on those issues. I think a lot of students might respond a bit more positively to that. So I think it's a bit more of a reimagination of the type of thing that the SU will be communicating. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much. So you also pledged to lower the cost of rent for students, while simultaneously improving wages for teachers. How do you think that the university would be able to afford an increase in spending on staff salaries while simultaneously seeing a decrease in its income from students' fees?
I think that follows on quite nicely from the last one, because I think the whole project of my bid is to reimagine what the SU can do and what it has a right to demand. Oxford University has an endowment of over £6 billion. It is unacceptable that colleges who have immense individual wealth can afford to provide education, definitely, unarguably, and can afford to provide education, but also rent at a much lower rate than they're choosing to do, rather reinvesting and building glamorous new buildings. And also on payment, if a university as rich as Oxford cannot afford to pay its workers a fair living wage or a fair salary for the profession they do, they cannot afford to run a university. I think that's very clear. And the fallout from not doing that is very clear in the strike action we've had over the past few years. I think that affects negatively constantly all the staff and the workers we have, as well as students and their education and when strikes are going on, and they really should not be crossing picket lines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the manifesto-specific questions for the candidates. I'd like to thank all of the candidates for attending the presidential hustings. I wish them all the best with their campaign, and I'd like to direct everyone watching to the Oxford Student Union website, where you can find the link to vote in the Oxford Student Union elections. Voting is open to all student members of the Oxford Student Union. It starts on Tuesday, the 9th of February at 8 AM, and will end on the 11th of February, which is Thursday at 6. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caleb.
Thanks,
Thank you.